idea of the partnerships were for underrepresented students to be able to go to schools like UVM. So it was exposure to the college campuses, early college awareness, demystifying the college process for the students and their parents, opening up doors that might not have been there before.
It did prepare me, but then for another extent it didn't, because UVM was an unfamiliar place for me in terms of it was a predominantly white school, and I didn't know much about that type of environment. I mean, Columbus was in an urban environment, and UVM was in a totally different environment. So in that aspect, I don't think it prepared me fully to be at UVM.
I think it helps a lot of minorities from the city better themselves as individuals, and just overall, I think as humans we always want to better ourselves and do things for other people and help other people. So I think it's a great idea.
My main issue that I felt among the partnership between Columbus and UVM was that it appeared that UVM was only recruiting students of color from the Bronx because they were trying to fulfill their minority quota. It was about numbers to them as opposed to the quality of the education. And that was kind of like my biggest issue with the school.
Where there are more than probably 50 students from this campus.
Oh, more than, certainly.
More that have gone through with it, but at least 50 who are currently attending, and the numbers who have already graduated.
Our students really profited and continue to profit from that relationship.
The University of Vermont has been working so hard to bring to the children of the inner cities the experiences that they may not have had before.
Like I said, when I first got there, I felt ashamed to be a person of color. I experienced things like amongst my first week there, I was walking down the block heading back to my dorm, and I passed a white woman on the street, and she had gotten off the sidewalk and into the street grabbing her purse as if I was going to rob her, and I never experienced things like that while I was in the Bronx. So
sharing my culture wasn't a big thing. I just felt whoever wanted to know, definitely asked.
I struggled a lot with identity. That's the first time that I ever realized that I was a black person, and that sounds funny because it's like, you're black, you were born black. Like, how do you mean that's the first time you realized that you were black? But I mean, when you're in an environment where everyone else is white and you're the black skin that's there, you notice it way more. And I mean, some people might say, why would you have a problem with that? But at the same time, it wasn't only about skin, it was culturally different. What I was used to in the Bronx, New York, wasn't what was happening in Burlington, Vermont. And that's something that I had to come to grips with.
Being at UVM, I did lose certain aspects of my culture, or I lost out on certain experiences because bringing certain things to the campus, it wasn't necessarily accepted by other higher programs, such as IRA. Yes, I am putting it out there. IRA and the SGA and things like that, they never really jumped on a lot of our programs, and it was a constant struggle trying to get funds and support from different areas on campus.
See, a lot of friends at UVM kind of knew I was from somewhere else, knowing that they heard the accent a little, but I wasn't losing my culture, not one bit. I was always playing music, soca, calypso, reggae in my room. So and also blasting it. So I think a lot of people actually enjoyed it.
And even being in a classroom where I felt isolated, or people weren't speaking to me because of where I was from, was a problem for me. I mean, going into the town sometimes, being called the N-word on different occasions, I mean, that did not make me feel welcomed at all.
We used to have
visits from the provost, from the president. They would walk in and the students were very up, and here they are. This is college, this is Vermont, okay? Why do you want us? Why are you here to talk to us? And they said they wanted to diversify the population in Vermont, and so they could see other students from inner city schools.
I myself, and I've also seen other students struggle with depression being at UVM because they were having such a hard time and they didn't want to be there. They didn't know what to do, and they kind of stuck with it until it was too late to transfer because all of their credits wouldn't transfer over, so they're kind of just stuck being miserable. I would say as a first year or as an incoming student, just weigh your options, and if you feel like that isn't the place where you need to be, don't let anybody tell you that you have to stay or that's where you need to be.
I think diversity works for both our students and the other students as well, and even just little things like flying in an airplane, which our students may not have done before, or staying at a hotel, or just experiencing Vermont. I see that as only a plus for them as well as for our students.
Because you deal with a lot of things in the Bronx that you don't have to deal with while you were in Vermont. Like there's a bunch of pressure that we had to deal with growing up here that we didn't have to experience in Vermont. Like Vermont was more laid back. We could actually feel the 24 hours go by in a day, as opposed to being in New York where time just flew by.
When we see our students going on to be doctors and engineers and working in all these wonderful clinics and hospitals and corporations, we feel our time has been worth it, and we don't know what would have happened to these students if this partnership never would have come about. So I think all the effort that is put in from our side, from the administrative part, from the teaching staff, I think should be mentioned, and the students are appreciative, and they're appreciative by the fact that they do graduate and go on to become what I would say successful human beings, just as the student behind the camera who's filming me is as well.
A little bit better of an opportunity than we did because there are more minorities and there are other resources popping up on campus, but you kind of have to dig for them and you have to get to know the right people out there. So actually finding resources and finding something that I was passionate about is what kept me at UVM, and I did realize within my junior year that I was learning things about myself that I probably wouldn't have learned had I stayed at home. So I do feel like at first I didn't want to be there, but in the ending it did help me in many ways, so I appreciate the opportunity of being able to go to UVM.
I don't regret going to UVM. I think it was a great idea. It's funny because UVM was kind of the last choice, but overall, I think it was the best choice for me.
But the admission staff and those who administer the admission staff have been exceptional, and without their desire to see this partnership work, I'm not sure it would have ever been as successful as it is, and I feel it's very successful.
I learned a lot about myself, my community. It taught me to be a better person and to be more appreciative of myself and where I come from. Being a person of color from the South Bronx, going to UVM. At first, I felt extremely inadequate about going there, but through the line of programs that they had there, it taught me to be proud of who I am as opposed to being ashamed of who I am.
Other friends from other universities that, friends that went to diverse universities, maybe even HBCUs, and they sound like they had a blast there. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like they learned as much as I did from the experiences that I had at UVM, and I really appreciate those things. Now that I look back on it, I really appreciate going to the University of Vermont.